Anthony, I'm really looking forward to today's show, but there's one thing I'm concerned about. I might not be cool enough to stay in any of them.
You are the coolest human being I've ever met in my entire life on this planet, on any other planet, and I would fight anybody that says different.
Believe it.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. I'm Glenn Hausman. That's Anthony Melchiori. Thank you for spending some time with us today. Anthony, I'm joking around, but we're going to be talking about some fun brands today from the Marriott family with a friend of the show, Eric Jacobs, who serves as the SVP of Marriott Select Brand. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun today. And you know what I forgot to do, because Dr. Producer Suzanne's not here. I forgot to take that graphic off and switch them all up. She's going to yell at me.
And Eric, I apologize for not recognizing you. Of course, we've met many times, so I apologize about that.
Eric, Anthony's been a little sick, so he's off his game.
A little sick. Yeah, a little sick. That's a good way. Actually, today's the first day I felt a little bit like myself. I went to the gym and getting stronger. I look better, right?
Yeah, you are starting to look better. Put on another couple of pounds, it looks like.
Yeah. Are you saying I'm fat?
No. I'm saying that if you do want to, add another 165 pounds or so, I'm looking for someone to be my sugar daddy. That's what I'm.
Not to talk too much about my breakfast, but I had a very big breakfast, and I had a really good workout with a lot of cardio, which is great. So I'm starting to feel stronger.
Excellent. And, Anthony's working out. And one other thing that's working out is how amazing Marriott is doing these days, particularly with certain of their lifestyle-focused brands, scalable lifestyle brands, I'd say. And we're going to talk with Eric Jacobs today. Eric, it is so great to see you. Thanks for being here.
It's great to see you. It's been a few years since I had a chance to visit with you guys and check in.
I know, man. I don't think we had a chance to talk to you at all during the crisis and all, but it's so great to be able to check in with you now and see how things are going. Let me just set the stage. I was at the Alice conference back in January, and I got a chance to run into a couple of people you definitely know. And I had a little sneak peek at the Moxy over there. It's so glad to see it's finally open over there. To me, that's really very symbolic of where these scalable lifestyle brands are heading, working with great partners such as the Lightstone Group and all.
Yeah, I 2 weeks ago, I had a chance to enjoy the grand opening party with Mitch and the broader team. Yep. The hotel looks fantastic. We're really looking forward to, that hotel is going to have a real special 8th floor. Mitch and Lightstone did a partnership with the Houston brothers. There'll be actually 8 restaurants in that building. Oh, cool. Keeping in mind, that's a 36-story building with 2 brands in it and 720.
Yes, there's an AC over there too, correct?
Yep.
That's another one of the brands that you work with.
Correct.
Yeah, and, that is fantastic.
When you check in at the AC on the 34th floor.
Uh-oh. You lost him?
He must be in the elevator going to the 34th floor.
I know, right? For sure. There he is. He's back. Go on. 34th floor. Can you hear us?
That was the Moxy owner not liking that he's talking about the AC.
I know, but Mitch is a great guy. We can't hear you for some reason. If you need to, Eric, if you could hear us, just leave entirely and then just re-click the link and come back in. That usually resets stuff in your favor. Oh. He's giving us all right, come on back. All right. So we're going to give him, we're going to let him figure that out and come right back.
We were in California. It was LA, right? You're talking about LA, right?
Correct. Right across across from the convention center.
Right. And I was going to go in and then I never got a chance to go in. But I was really looking forward to seeing that brand. I was at the Intercon, I think, which is I think is kind of not too far from there as well. And the Intercons are very interesting. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Moxy.
We are here to talk about those brands with Eric Jacobs rejoining from Marriott. All right. I think you can hear us now. Can we hear you?
I can. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
It's all good. That stuff happens. That is the fun of the internet and technology, always keeping us on our toes. So you last left us. I'm on pins and needles. We're getting up to the 34th floor, and I need to know what happens next.
Listen, the hotel is just fabulous. I think as guests arrive there, they're going to see views all the way out almost to the ocean up there, the Hollywood Hills. Wow. It's just a gorgeous, and in some ways almost better than LA Live, where the buildings are a little more clustered because you get kind of step away from the forest. You really, I guess, are going to be blown away with the public spaces there. The restaurants are going to be fantastic, and the hotel is just on target. And meeting with the ownership team and the leadership team there, they're already. Well, I guess one of the greatest things for me as a brand leader today is they're saying the consumer that's coming to the Moxy is so different than the one showing up at the AC. So it means my brand team's doing a good job in terms of creating that distinction and targeting the right consumers. And again, as you know, with 31 brands in the house, it's always a challenge for us at Marriott when owners or guests are saying, how do you explain your portfolio to us?
Wait, I thought it was 32 with City Express, the recent acquisition of the
31
company. It's just a 31. All right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm jumping ahead to July or something like that. I don't know anything.
By August, it'll be 131.
Yeah, right. For sure.
You know how many hotels does Marriott have with their brand on? I was surprised by this because it's not what I thought it would be. Do you know how many, Glenn, without looking at Google?
No, I'm not looking at the Google. I'm going to say 7,500.
8,500. But I thought it was more than that.
I was afraid to get too many.
30,000. It's 8,500, right?
It's 8,500 open. We've got the largest pipeline, globally. So we've got another 500,000 rooms coming. Again, we still have a lot of opportunity. As Mr. Marriott likes to say, his favorite word is more. And globally, so there's lots of opportunities for us.
That's for sure. So if you clarify, though you oversee the select service brands, we're talking Courtyard, 4 Points, Spring Hill, Fairfield, Protea, AC, Aloft, and Moxy. Today, we're really focusing our conversation more on those scalable lifestyle brands, AC, Aloft, and Moxy type of brands that are out there. So I'm a little curious to see how customers these days are thinking about these brands. It seems to me originally they're for like a little bit younger audience, but I'm finding gray-haired guys and people of all ages and genders are digging them too.
If I could just say for that, to add to the second part of the question, is to me, Moxy isn't a limited service brand. So that's why you're seeing more people, I think, with gray hair, because it really isn't.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, as I guess, again, as we as folks in the industry define what limited service is, a guest doesn't know what that means, right?
Nor do they care.
They don't. But you're right. I think with Aloft and Moxy specifically, when those brands were launched, they were launched with, and certainly there's let me step back. Both of those brands are global brands. And so sometimes the way they have manifested themselves from a distribution strategy have been a little different. When we launched,
for
Moxy,
example, like AC coming out of Spain,
correct,
example. Right,
or Moxy coming out of Europe, and Moxy was intended to be more of a, again, scalable lifestyle, but maybe different than North America. You might find them in smaller airports and train stations. Just looking at the way Europeans travel today is a little different than North America, and because we had we have such, almost, over 5,000 hotels in North America alone. When we brought Moxy to North America, we made a very deliberate decision to try to keep it in the kind of urban markets and keep it close to those, kind of locations where folks were looking for bars and restaurants and active evenings and things like that. So the distribution strategy dictated a little bit differently, but the brand itself, you're right. It has, whether it's Aloft or Moxy, which I think both came out trying to, focus on maybe a younger traveler, or maybe for me, it's maybe a little more generational thinking. Some of the things that influence these consumers today about how do they want to travel, how, if we go back 25 years ago when I started in development, we were all in suits and ties. Today, jeans and a jacket is really acceptable, and you'd be overdressed in a Moxy. But there are guests for each one of these segments, target guests. I just spent 5 days in Frankfurt at our Moxy in downtown. And I came back and I did really realize that, people want engagement and experiences, and that it has nothing to do with your age demographic. If you are playful and you enjoy getting together with people, whether it's your family or your friends or your business partners, and getting around the bar in the evening or getting into the public space and wanting to kind of play games and enjoy a social hour, Moxy and Aloft really play into that. And I think that's what we've seen. We have a new campaign coming out on Moxy. I know particularly early on, people thought it was a little provocative, maybe even pushing the edge of raunchy. I hate to say it, use those words, but that's how it was felt. Yep. And you'll start to see some of our new look and feel, much more inclusive. The marketing and brand team, Brian and Caroline, have named it, we're glowing up Moxy. Nice. And I think everybody who sees where we're going with this, being more inclusive, not so, it's not about the young, it's about the young at heart and folks looking for a playful, fun experience. And I think you're going to see that in both of those brands.
Yeah, and I think that's true in most of the brands where people say, well, this is for the older, this is for this generation, that's for the just. We're all different. And, it's when people say kids today, everybody's about technology. Everybody's about technology. So I really like that you said that it's about the young at heart. It's, some days I'm in the mood for very kind of formal kind of environment. And sometimes I'm in the mood to hang out. And very rarely, but sometimes.
Right. And just to give our audience a little perspective of what we're really talking about, instead of talking about demographics, what we're really talking about is psychographics, the notion of putting people into groups based on how they think, as opposed to typical demographical stuff, such as where they've come from or their particular age.
You're so smart.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're just finishing a big study on Gen Z and kind of looking about how they're going to experience the world and travel and do life. And, most of us have some Gen Zs at home. And so
I've got two that I need to get out of bed eventually today.
And a lot of them are saying,
one.
A lot of our leaders and folks that we talk to say, they may not, they're 12 to 26 today. So they might not be, fully in the market, but they're certainly influencing the older, the next generation, the guys who are in their 50s. About how we are, how they travel, how we will travel as a family, the things that we do, the things that they're looking for. And I think it's really, really important. And again, all of us, back to your young at heart, I want to be more like my boys and my daughters, living in the now and things like that and making sure. So I think we take on those manifestations. But, there are, to your point, we used to talk about in brands strictly around demographics. And today there's so much more insights around psychographics. And psychographics don't know an age. If you're playful at heart, you're going to be playful at 50 or 75.
And I would argue a lot of the brands that we've seen in general across the entire spectrum of hospitality in the world over the last 15, 20 years have been trying to find those psychographic niches in order to build brands upon. Generally, they call that we've detected a X amount of dollars white space. So we're going to create a brand that fits into that. So this is something that's really real that's out there. The way that people want to enjoy these hotels that you're putting up there for today's conversation.
Yeah, and there's a range in that. And I think, I had a chance recently to go to Japan and see some of our hotels. We have new AC. So we have several Moxys in Tokyo and in the surrounding area, as well as the Lofts. And you walk in those hotels and even in Japan, it resonates. And the demographic or the psychographic of that customer, you can see it playing out, whether it's in Japan or North America or in Europe. And I think that was a real pleasant surprise for me. And when you start to talk to the guests while we're sitting in those lobbies and asking them, what do you like about the brand and why does it fit you and things like that, it just gives you a great feeling as a brand leader that we are hitting the marks. Doesn't mean we don't have opportunities for improvement, but at least we're listening to those consumers.
And you're a great example of why this industry's fantastic. You just talked about LA, Germany, and Japan. And that's part of your job, to go to these hotels and to check on them, to make sure what can be improved, what's working. And it's the greatest career field. I'm on this mission to really talk about our career field. And you're an example of that. It's just, how much do you love your job?
Oh, I absolutely love it. Okay. It's a blast that we're taking, that's the fun part about these brands too, is how do we make them relevant in those markets, right? And today, really recognizing, I think we go back to the 30 years ago, a lot of the North American companies would design a product, we say, okay, it works here, so let's go take it to Europe. And we kind of do it the same way.
Right.
And I think we're much smarter today by thinking about what is the food, what is the music, how does your marketing look,
right,
in terms of attracting customers in those regional continents. And a lot of our time today is spending, as we've taken a lot of these North American brands and figuring out how to grow them regionally or and locally, making sure we put the right beverage and food in those,
right,
and that there is at least a nod to that local. That's one thing I would say about my experience in Japan recently. They took each one of those brands, and they were certainly 100% on strategy, but there was also that local Japanese influence that you could see throughout, whether
right.
it was in the food, whether it was in the design. And it was just, they just brought them to life so wonderfully. It was
Rob
such a great experience.
Rob Finley from LinkedIn is saying, amazing how much development is happening in Japan with Marriott, with the limited service brands, or we'll call them select brands. Yeah. So when you go into these different areas, because are you searching, let's see, I just want to use Japan for an example real quick. Are you really primarily looking for that Japanese traveler that's traveling domestically, or is it kind of split between international base as well? How is that set up? And then how does it express itself within the design and amenities within the property?
Well, it's one of the questions I ask the teams regularly. Yeah. If we're, if we're going to take one of our brands into a particular country or continent, who is that customer? Right. So when you look at places like Japan or China, even, quite honestly, not much different than North America, 95+% plus or minus of our travelers in North America are domestic. And we see the same thing in China or Japan. And so when you ask the question, you say, okay, great. Well, then I've got to figure out how to take this version, whether we create it in Europe or America, and we need to make it locally relevant. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have, while still remaining within the brand ethos, right?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't go to Tokyo and expect to find bacon and eggs necessarily on the breakfast. I want to find ramen and other things that you would eat locally. That's part of that local experience.
Yep. Yeah,
so how do we infuse that in there? Infuse the fun, learn some really good things too, that some of the things that we might say here in North America don't translate very well in other parts of the world, or the language just doesn't, or the cheekiness, or the and so we have to be really thoughtful around that. And I think we've really leaned in hard globally across all of our brands to making sure we do that. But I think when we get into this lifestyle, and particularly in the Moxy and Aloft segment, making sure that we are speaking to a consumer, they smell things that are not authentic, right? And they see when we're trying too hard, and they've told us that. So we try to stay close to that consumer and really respond to that. Because I think what we're seeing, whether it was Gen X, Gen Y, or Z, we all want authenticity. I think that's a good word that we've all been talking about for the last 8 or 10 years. The products and services and brands that we want to associate with have to be authentic. They can't be forced. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing some of the marketing shift, at least in North America, around Moxy, is that we were getting that feedback that it was feeling a little too forced. And trying to be a little more authentic to the consumer that really exists there.
What percentage of people, and maybe you don't want to give me the percentage, but are the travelers in Japan, China, in different markets, are they as wired into Bonvoy and programs like that as the American consumer?
I think that we all like yes, and yes. I think is my answer. I think it's different, though. It's different about how it might manifest itself. And there's still an education going on. When you bring a collection of brands like we've brought to the table and then rebrand everything, we had Marriott Rewards, we had the SPG program, and you bring that all together. So as we, and we launched that, what was in 1819.
And hold on one second, Eric, just so people know, SPG refers to the former Starwood program. Marriott and Starwood combined, was it 5 years now? Maybe more, maybe
since 2016, right?
Well, geez.
Right.
All right, 7. Years.
But then we
Yeah.
ran 2 programs for a period of
A
time,
long
and then
time.
brought them all together, under Marriott Bonvoy. So, and then the pandemic hit. So, so there was a little, I don't want to say a pause, but you saw some of our more inspirational marketing that we came out with versus individual brands to inspire travel and under the umbrella of Bonvoy.
Right.
And that was a global campaign. But I do think that, people all over the world what we see as rewards programs work. We recognize that they want to get something for their investment and beyond just the initial stay. And I think the way we've set up Bonvoy, tying all the brands together and then creating these experiences beyond just hotel rooms, gives these guests something that the old days of just collecting points for rooms, I don't think is as relevant today as you get into programs like ours, where you can go, hey, I can go and spend a few points and go to experience a specific concert or a cooking event, or I just went to the NFL draft and we had guests, cool. Bonvoy members bid their points to be able to go to the draft, and what a great experience for all of them. And so I think,
sure. And I'd like to add in there, I think that is the type of thing that creates the glue that gets those people to stick with your company no matter what. Because if they can make that emotional connection, not just with a good night's sleep or a nice lobby experience, but the things that they're most passionate about, like getting access to something they couldn't do on their own, that is really where it's at. And I've seen a lot of brands out there have some success with that, and fits in starts. Amex has done a good job.
Yeah, but just to finish the comment, I do think it's different around the world, and different consumers and different. And Americans love the point program, and we've seen that for years. I do think it's growing. You do see other programs in different parts of the world. What may not just be hotel and maybe other things, but consumers around the world like that. Either whether Bonvoy gives them that recognition for their investment and their stay with us, and to your point, building that stickiness around all of their lives has been part of our focus in our program, to make sure that we have products and services at different price points based on different travel trips, to kind of meet all the different needs of different consumers around the world, and then tie that all together with Bonvoy and provide more than just room nights, but also that experience.
That sounds complicated, and I know it's more complicated than it sounds.
It is, of course. Yeah.
So with all the brands out there, you guys have 31, and the other brands have a lot. How much? And I know it's difficult to answer this question, but I like asking difficult questions. How much do you look over the fence at the competition, saying, "Oh, that's a brand that brand is interesting, and maybe we should bring a brand on like that," or that brand, is like a lot of brands? I mean, how much of that goes on?
I wouldn't say we so much look over the fence. I think I'll give you an example. I think Marriott Homes and Villas was really driven by our Bonvoy members and our consumers. They basically came to us and said, we have a special group we call it Point of View. We have a group of Bonvoy members that we lean in on a regular basis, run ideas against, things like that. And I think they came to us and said, look, hey, you guys, you're not in this space. If you guys were, you'd even get more a share of my wallet. And so it wasn't so much that Airbnb was out there doing what they were doing, or other brands, but that our consumers said to us, you need to be in this segment, because if you're not, we're gonna go and spend money in this segment. And so I think that's what we were responding to in that particular instance.
Interesting.
But I listen, with 31 brands, we look at segments or white space maybe that we're not in. I mean, I'll just touch upon the acquisition of City Express, which I'm just thrilled about. This is really our step into the mid-scale segment. And while right now the focus is to continue to grow that brand through Latin America and South America, who knows where that brand will take us, or us stepping into that segment. It's not that segment, the mid-scale segment existed. It's probably the largest segment in the world in terms of the numbers of bodies that exist. We've just never played in that space. So, I mean, I think that's a good nod where Marriott recognized we had some white space, that we had customers banging on our door and love to be part of us, but we just didn't have a product to offer them.
Interesting. And I want everybody to know we did a show with Jennifer Shea from last June 16th. She was the VP of Homes and Villas by Marriott International. I put the link into the chat boxes, everybody. So go ahead and check out that show as well. So, Eric, how do you define the differences between Moxy, AC, and Aloft? So you create what we call in the industry clear swim lanes to make sure that there's good differentiations for customers and for your ownership base out there that's going to invest in these.
Yeah. Listen, I think it's harder. It got harder and harder. When I first started the company, I had 5 select brands. Now I got 11. So, and so,
but when you were selling them, it was easier. You had more choices to be selling.
We had more choices to sell for sure. And we have more choices for our consumers. But again, I think what we try to do is really try to focus in. I'll give you an example. I think AC to Moxy is a good one, right?
Right.
And one of our leaders years ago used to describe, if you think about the customer of an AC might be the gentleman or woman that's wearing a Bose headset, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the guest that was going to the Moxy was the one wearing the Beats.
Right.
And that was just a simple way to kind of explain.
That's a great way to define it.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you look at the overall aesthetic, some of it is in product, some of it is in programming, leaning into a particular psychographic. But that psychographic, we know in AC probably also stays at a JW, a Autograph Hotel, and other. So it might be then now price point or distribution that we're trying to meet that need. And so I think we do a pretty darn good job of trying to keep the product and the experience offering differentiated enough. And listen, AC we bought in Europe. It was an existing brand, and now we're glowing around the world. Moxy was an absolute internal organic brand created to go chase a consumer and set maybe in some ways a voice to the next generation of consumer that says Marriott's got an offering that's different. And it's not just at this scale. When you start to look at Tribute and Autograph and up into our Edition, these are brands in a segment that 10 years ago Marriott wasn't in. We were really known as kind of a classic, repeatable product that everybody could count on. And I think that's where we've really exploded. And I think we launched that really with Autograph back in after the financial crisis in 2008, 2009. And it was really an aha moment for us that there was all these guests that were staying at these lifestyle boutique independent hotels that were saying, Marriott, if you had something like this, we would love to stay with you. And then, so Autograph was the catalyst for that, but we've gone up with Edition, launching that brand organically, and we came down and launching Moxy. Right. And then AC and Aloft and Element, obviously, were done through acquisition. Right. But we've tried to stay focused on how do we keep those as distinct as possible within the portfolio and within the global platform, right? I think our 4 brands today, probably, if you tried to put anybody else up against us, you could probably almost add up the rest of the industry that's trying to play in the scalable lifestyle, and they probably have 10% of what we have in existing footprint today. Wow. So these brands are growing. They're some of our best performing, and when I say best performing, with the guest, in terms of what do they like and don't like about travel, and our beverage and food experiences in our selects, particularly in AC, Moxy, and Aloft. But even Element today probably scores the highest on our breakfast and things like that within our portfolio. And so if we put that again, and so it's hard to say, hey, Element is competing against so-and-so, because it doesn't even exist. There isn't a true competitor to Element today.
So, Glenn, don't you wish he had some passion for his job?
I know. It's terrible over here.
Somebody accused me the other day, if somebody asked me how to make mashed potatoes, I'd get this passionate. So it's just that's who I am.
That's hysterical. I saw a horrible attempt at someone making mashed potatoes with a bag of potato chips and milk. That did not work out too well for them. Eric, though, one thing that is working out for you is last week, you had the amazing GMs conference. I think it was like 5,000 people that gathered in Anaheim over there for it. So I'm curious, what are some of the issues that you're seeing out there that GMs are thinking about today, and how are they processing those particular issues?
Yeah, it was, this was the first time we brought all of our select service GMs together in 4 years.
Wow.
We met in 19. We were supposed to meet
Yeah.
at the end of 20. And then,
Yeah.
of course, everything happened.
Yeah.
So this is probably the longest stretch. I think there were a lot of several aha moments, not just for senior leadership. Some of us knew this inherently, but it's always when you see it in live and in person. We had one session where we had 1,000 GMs, and our brand leader asked the question, how many of you are here for the first time? And more than half of the hands went up.
Right.
And so, and this was in one of our, this was in Courtyard, which tends to have more tenured GMs.
Right.
And so I think it was a good aha moment for all of us to remind ourselves that so much has changed over the last 4 years, both in leadership at the hotel level. And the big trend we saw a lot. We always invite our regional directors of operation. Usually we get about 200, 250 of them. This year we got close to 600. Oh. So another trend that I think the regional directors recognizing, when you have a portfolio hotel, I need to lean in harder. I need to know how each brand is trying to position yourself, how to remain distinctive. So I think there was a lot of thirst for engagement around the brands and the tools and resources that Marriott has to make them successful GMs and operators. But there were, we're still struggling in certain parts of the world, parts of the North America. We know that the recovery has not been an even recovery. Right. When you look at its, doors are blowing and going in Texas, but the Bay Area is still, not quite as fully back to the 19 numbers. Right. So I think that was the big takeaway. Lots of new leaders within our hotels, and they were thirsty for resources and support. And the excitement coming out of the conference for all of us, and the notes that I've gotten from GMs and from our leaders has just been right time with the right message, that we're there to support them. We love what they're doing, and how else can we help you grow your business?
Awesome. I would then like to say, I love what you're talking about, success tools. That is so important, and that they were hungry for those, because I'm sure that there were a lot of men and women in that room who normally wouldn't have been in that room just yet if we hadn't been through that pandemic. Our very own producer, Dave, got the opportunity to be a GM probably earlier than he otherwise would have. So we know firsthand that there are people out there that have these great opportunities and they want to be successful. So hearing that they want some of that extra training and access to resources is really encouraging. How is that helping you retain them? And what are some of the things maybe that you're thinking of?
Yeah, well, so one of the things we did was a first time, we created, we refer to them as packs, but we kind of went through the registration by brand and said, because when you register, we said, how long have you been a GM? 5 years, 2 to 5, less than 2. And we actually created packs, and we tried to create space for bringing GMs within the brands, just so they could get to know each other and start to build relationships. And they can not only lean on Marriott to help them, but then they can call another GM in another market and say, hey, how have you tackled this issue? How, you're in the market, what are you doing with labor supply? Are you having the same issue? So that seemed to have resonated with them too. It's just, again, like all of us, the first Alice conference or the first Phoenix Lodging conference we all got back to, it was so good to be with everybody. Right. And so
Eric, that first conference I went to was the Hunter Hotel Investment Conference when we got back to it. And you just felt the love and the family reunion spirit of it at that event and all the others going forward.
And I think that was a big takeaway for everybody too.
Yeah.
But
I'd imagine 90% of it was just getting together.
That's right. But we also we were deliberate in trying to provide space to allow these GMs to kind of come together.
And I think, Eric, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what's really important is these people that have not had this opportunity, they're in what I call the world of they don't know what they don't know. So when they get to talk to people that are in the same situation with them, they realize others are going through that. They realize that there are people, like you said, that they can talk to and build a relationship with because they're all in the same situation together. And I find when you have your group, everyone in that group can be more successful together than if they were just going at it alone.
Well, one of the other underlying themes that I think, whether we thought about it early on, but I think will be an outcome is, again, we're trying to aspire the whole, let's get people back to the industry, right? This has been one of our challenges, getting people to come back into the industry. So the more we can shine the light on that, this is an amazing industry where, you know, my relationships go back 30 years of people I've worked in hotels with or side by side. And that this industry is about sharing and about successes and our sharing of that success. And so we hope that this will also inspire people to come back into the industry and realize what's an amazing place to have a career. And there's this amazing collegial relationship that you'll have throughout your career if you could just lean in. And then I think the other thing, it was great for our more tenured GMs to go, yeah, I have a part in this and I can influence a young leader. One of the, the other thing I think was, you know, we've opened since 2019, the last time we've opened 1,000 hotels in the segment. So there was 1,000 hotels that had never had a chance to meet with senior leadership, brand leaders, and with each other. So that was the other great opportunity.
That's incredible.
Again, bringing people together is always a win.
Anthony?
No, I just love listening to you talk. You have so much passion. And, you know, you're almost forcing my hand to make an announcement today, but I won't. Based on what you're talking about and bringing people back to the industry, we're working within the industry to do something that's never been done before. But we'll be announcing that probably at the hospitality show in June in Vegas. So, but something big news, and hopefully Marriott will support the vision and support what we're about to do, but we'll be announcing that soon. Excellent. But my number one mantra before I retire and go off into the sunset is we have the coolest business. You don't, and you need to be in this business. End of story. I had my friends, my daughter's friend was at the pool yesterday. I hadn't seen her. She's a junior in college. And I said, are you still in, she's a Penn State hospitality program. You're still in the hospitality program? She goes, yeah. She goes, I love it. I said, okay. So I pulled up a lounge chair and I sat and I probably kind of drove her crazy for 20 minutes I said, I'm not going to give you a lot of direction, but there's one direction I'm going to give you. And this is what you need to be doing as soon as you graduate college. We need to make sure that these young minds don't get blasted straight out of college and leave. When we came up in this industry, we all have dead bodies that surrounded us for years, right? That just didn't make it. And we need to give people a soft landing. You know, when you go to work for a corporation like Marriott, it's a little bit softer landing than kind of just being out in the independent world. But it's really important that these young managers that you talk about, that they have those people they can lean on, that they have a soft landing, that when they are stressed out, they realize somebody in that, you know, in their friend group have been through what they're going through 100 times. We're talking about David, the producer, he calls me and I had to stop saying, I said, I understand. I give him an example. I try to listen more because I've been through everything he's saying 100 times. Yeah. And sometimes people cut bait and run, and we just got to make sure we give people a soft landing.
Yeah. Well, I think, and this is you know, whether it's a generational shift, it was always out there, but I think we're also going to see companies. I know Marriott this week is it's Associate Appreciation Week. We have guest speakers this week just talking about mental health. I mean, that was something that was, you know, hidden in the past, right? And I can remember early in my career, you know, we all have worked long hours. We recognize that. But I remember waking up one night on the way home, hanging upside down in my car because I had gone, you know, 70 days without a day off and an 18-hour day. And I woke up and I was laying in a ditch upside down. And I was thinking to myself, what the heck am I doing? Yeah. And if it wasn't for people at that time that came around and said, hey, all right, we've all been through this. Let's just make that adjustment. But I think today will be even more important because we're much more open about how we're feeling, and certainly this generation and mental health.
And it's critically important. It's
Marriott's leaning hard on that.
What you say is chilling because I was opening a hotel and we had somebody, and I won't mention from where, but we had somebody that was on task force, and they sent us somebody, and that gentleman never made it home because for that, what you just said, he was working, I guess, on a lot of task force. He hadn't had a day off, and he had an accident, and he didn't make it home. Yeah. So it's real. So, you know, mental health isn't weakness. You know, some people could talk about it, some people can't talk about it, but there's got to be an avenue that whether you talk about it or you don't talk about it, that people recognize that somebody is being pushed to a certain level. Listen, you know, there was something shocking that was on social media a couple weeks ago, and it showed Robin Williams and it showed Stitch, the guy that committed suicide, and it said, "This is what suicide looks like," and they both have big smiles on their face, right? And I think that is so critically important that we understand that. But what's also good is the generations pushed us to realize that they're asking for things that we would never ask for, and they're getting what they want, which is making us get what we want. It's making us kind of be able to push our bosses to get what we want, because everybody is realizing it's okay to have a work-life balance, and it's okay as long as you're still doing the job. You know, I always like to say standards is what we're working with. Everything else is negotiable. This is the standard, and how you get there is fine. You want to take off, you want to work from home. This is the standard. You meet the standard. I don't care if you paint your hair blue and come in one day a week. But this is the standard, and these are the expectations. Yep. And as long as everybody's following that, how we get there is different. You know, when you run a marathon, everybody gets to the finish line in a different way.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Eric, before we wrap up, there's one topic we should talk about, because after all, the NYU Hospitality and Investment Conference is coming up in just a couple of weeks at fabulous Marriott Marquis in New York City. Got to get in the Marriott plug for you when I can. What do you think is going to be the owner, developer, management company sentiment over there? How have things changed since our last check-in at the Hunter Investment Conference in March?
I'm not sure a whole lot has changed, to be honest with you. I think, you know, the credit markets are still going to be probably the big topic. Interest rates, inflation. While I think, what's that?
All the greatest hits.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that a whole lot has changed there. You know, we just finished our earnings call. You know, the lenders haven't really changed, right? Yeah. Interest rates, you know, are what they are. I think those are the challenges for all of us. While we talk about we're getting to 2019 or doing better than 2019 on the top line, you know, RevPAR is, but that doesn't mean people are making more money. And I think that's a realization. And if we don't see a change in the credit markets, whether it's the the ability to refinance, finding debt and or equity, you know, there's some good and bad to this, right? You know, when there's less than 1% supply growth, that's good for the existing hotels that are open, right? We get a chance to catch our breath. But most of us are also at that particular conference are owner, developer, investors who want to grow their portfolios. And so if you don't have the credit markets available to you at reasonable rates and LTVs and things like that, it's gonna slow some of that. And I think it's a challenge for a lot of our owners today. I know there are instances, but again, this imbalanced recovery. If you're running 65, 68% in the Bay Area, even at a $300 rate, and you opened a hotel in 2019 or 20 based on your development costs and your underwriting, you're probably not making debt service still. So while we like to talk about the industry doing better on the top line, I'm not sure always that our owners are making as much money. Let's put it that way, due to inflation, supply chain, labor changes, all of those kinds of things. I think that will continue to be the topic as well. You know, but the big focus will be the credit markets, and I think that was what we heard at Hunter as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think your assessment is absolutely accurate. Before we wrap up today, anything else that you want to throw in there, Eric?
Maybe just a plug for my team. I'm so proud of what we're doing.
Go for it.
Broadly across Marriott. My brand leadership today on my specific team is so focused on trying to drive the distinction, drive the right metrics, both for the guests and for the owners. And as long as we stay focused on that, I think we'll win. Yeah.
Awesome. Eric, do me a favor, hang out backstage. I want to say goodbye to you personally after we wrap up the show. Thanks so much for being here. Eric,
thank you.
SVP with Marriott. So, Anthony, that was a whole lot of fun. We learned a lot today, didn't we?
We did. And I love people that are very passionate and articulate about their industry. And I would imagine if I gave him a test, he would pass it with 100%.
Right. And
he's so knowledgeable.
I do want you all to know, though, even though I do have Bose headphones, I have stayed at a Moxy. So I will go both ways on that one.
I like Moxy. I love it, but AC is my jam. I love Moxy when I'm feeling kind of like, hey, I just want to hang out. But AC is my jam.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with both watching or listening to our podcast. Listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you get your shows. That is where we are. For some reason, if we're not, let us know. We're going to fix that right away for you. And if you're listening to us, why not give us a watch? Watch us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Anthony, you got to hold that back up. Show up. His book available right now at shop.anthonymelcury.com. Get your signed book at shop.anthonymelcury.com. All right, everyone. Remember, you've got one life. So blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you later. Bye, everyone.